All right, you guys, so today we're going to talk about the new cream clays. And I know a bunch of you have got them in the mystery boxes for this Black Friday, and you've got a lot of questions about it. So today I'm going to answer some of those common questions, some of the do's and don'ts, or what I need to do or what shouldn't I do with the cream clays. So with the cream clays, let's start with base and top coat. Okay. Now, whether you're working on a natural nail versus an enhancement is going to be a different process, just slightly. So when you're working on a natural nail, you can use the cream clays as a full coverage like you would use your gel polishes. It is a soft gel, so it's going to be nice and flexible over those natural nails, but you do want to be using a base coat with it. Okay. So with the cream clays, you want to stick with using a soft gel base coat. Okay, so either the manicure base or even the conversion base works as well. They're both good base coats for when you're working with gel polishes. Okay, so on a natural nail, always use a good base coat. That's going to give you a little bit more flexibility. It's also going to give you a little bit more durability. The cream clays go on fairly thin, and so you want to use that base coat again for the adhesion, but then also to give that nail a little bit more thickness and a little bit more durability, so you have a little bit better wear. Now, as for top coats, when you're working on a natural nail, again, the manicure top coat works great, and the conversion top coat also works really good. Same concept, they're both going to work well. They're both a soft gel. They're both going to give you a really nice high shine. They are going to cure with a tacky surface, so you want to make sure that you're using the manicure cleanse to cleanse that off. Okay. Now, if you do want that tack-free shine where you don't have to worry about cleansing, you can use the Ultimate Finish gel. The Ultimate Finish is a hard gel, but it does have a little bit more flexibility to it. Okay, so you can definitely use that as a top coat for your cream clays. The top coat you don't want to be using is your stain-resistant top coat. Okay, stain-resistant is designed as a hard gel to work over enhancements. So if you're using this over your Mission Control on a natural nail, you're probably going to end up with a little bit of cracking and a little bit of shattering of that top coat. Okay, so skip the stain-resistant on a natural nail. Save that for the enhancements. Okay, so let's talk about enhancements. When you're working with the cream clays over an enhancement, you do not need to use that base coat. It's going to adhere right to that natural nail. But what I do recommend is using a coat of protein bond over your filed nail, and then you can go right into your cream clay application. Again, you don't need a separate base coat. Okay. As for top coat, you can use any of the top coats that I've talked about. You can use the manicure top, you can use the conversion top, Ultimate Finish, or stain resistant. So again, stain resistant over an enhancement is going to give you a really good high shine. It's going to be stain resistant, and you're not going to worry about that cracking because that enhancement underneath is not as flexible as that natural nail. Let's talk about what brush to use and why. So we're going to be using a gel brush to apply our product. You don't want to be using an acrylic brush. And really, you guys, it's going to be your personal preference and what you get the best results with. But I'm going to kind of give you a little pointers on each of the brushes. So our first brush is our Master Gel Brush. And this one, it's a little bit of a longer bristle, but it does, when you kind of brush it out, when you press that out, it'll come to a little bit more of an oval shape. If you keep it at a little bit of a tighter point, that brush does come more to that point like that. Okay. Now, when you're working with the cream clays, you want to make sure that you're actually getting that brush kind of fanned out a little bit, so you do have a little bit more of that oval shape rather than that point. If you keep your brush to a point like that, that's where you're going to start to get kind of that streaky look to your polishes, to your cream clays. Okay. All three of our brushes can be brought to that more oval shape. So you want to make sure that you're working with the brush at that oval shape. Okay. So our second brush is our Pro Gel Sculptor, and this is the one that comes in two pieces. This one works as a cap. You can put that on to keep your brush closed and keep that nice and clean, but then it also works as a handle. Same kind of thing. You can get that brush to that more oval shape. Difference between these two is the Master Gel Brush is a natural bristle. The Pro Sculptor is a synthetic, so it just kind of depends on which you prefer. Both are similar in their length, just a little bit longer on the Master Gel Brush. Okay. Personally, now you can definitely use these brushes and they work great. Okay, but I actually like to use a little bit of a shorter bristle. Okay, so if I hold those next to each other, you can see that our dual-ended brush with the spatula on one end is a little bit shorter. And for me personally, I like that because I feel like I get a little bit more little more pressure and a little bit more consistent pressure, okay? So as I'm applying my product, let's talk about pressure. As I'm applying my product, I want to use good even pressure, and I feel like with this brush, I get that a little bit better than the other two, but you can definitely use the other two if you like. Now, before I use my brush, this one actually is a brand new brush, I'm going to take a little bit of, I'm just going to grab my manicure top coat. I want to work a little bit of gel into my brush. Now, you don't have to do this every time, but because this is a new brush, I want to kind of prep that brush and kind of prime it a little bit by working a little bit of that gel into it. If you were to just go into your cream clay, what's going to happen is that brush is going to absorb all of that cream clay, and it's going to be a little bit harder to clean it out. So if you work a little bit of clear gel into your brush first, that way it's going to kind of allow that cream clay to release a little bit better when you go to clean it out. Because when you're working with the cream clays or any other colored gel, you have a lot of pigment in there, okay? So if you're trying to clean that pigment out, it's going to come out a lot easier when you've got a little bit of that clear gel kind of as a base in there first. So I'm just going to pull some of that gel, that excess, out of there so that we don't have that clear gel in there, and we're going to go right into our cream clay now. There's a couple of different techniques that you can use to keep it from streaking, and it really just depends on the pressure, okay? So again, I'm going to brush. I like to actually start at the edge of, or at the free edge of my nail. On my first layer, I tend to use a little bit more pressure. You can see I'm keeping my brush not straight up and down, but about a 45-degree angle to the nail, okay? And again, with this brush, because those are a shorter bristle, I'm going to get a lot more even application, okay? So on my first coat, again, I'm going to use a little bit more pressure. I'm not killing that nail. I'm not trying to just scrape that on or anything. I'm just a little pressure, okay? And then I'm going to follow through. So you can kind of see as I'm working, I'm doing, you know, a little bit maybe shorter strokes right in those tighter areas. Get everything as close to my cuticle as I can. And then I'm just going to follow through with a very light all the way through. Very light stroke all the way through to make sure that I get full coverage. You're going to notice my first coat, it's not 100% perfect, and that's okay, because with our second coat, we're going to get it perfect. Get this into the light really quick. We'll freeze that into place, and then I'll show you the pressure with our second coat. Okay, so you guys, this happened for a reason, okay? I dinged the nail on the way into the light, so I'm going to just show you how to fix it. Might as well address the situation, because you guys, it's going to happen on a real client. So let's talk about it. So as I'm working, and this is how I'm going to apply my second coat regardless of having that ding on there or not. So on my second coat, I'm actually going to pick up a little bit more product than I normally would with the first. And I'm going to use just a little bit less pressure. So again, I'm just kind of feathering over the nail. And this is going to give me that good overall coverage, but it's going to give me that nice smooth look. Now, if you start to see those streaky areas, I'm going to pick up just a little bit more product on my brush. It's almost like we're floating it, but not quite floating it. We're still using just a hint of pressure, but now you can see got a little bit more even coverage, okay? Even through that little streaky area that we dinged. Now here's the challenge though. Once you get it, and this is where I actually have a challenge, is I want to keep going back through just to make sure. But the more you brush over it, the more it's going to move the product. So get your product on there, smooth it out, float over it, and then get it into the light, okay? I think sometimes we tend to overwork our product, and that's where we get those streaks. So again, float over it, feather over it, and we're going to be nice and even. Okay, I think we're good. We're going to pop that into the light. Okay, so our second coat is cured. Now, at this point, if maybe you feel maybe your application wasn't exactly right on, it's okay to add a third coat, But usually what I do is I'll pick up just a little bit and just kind of flow it into those areas that maybe I still saw a little bit of streaking. I don't want to take too much. And again, just into those areas that maybe seemed a little bit lighter, maybe that area that my client dinged on the way into the light, just to make sure it's nice and smooth and even. And that way, if you do have any last little bit of streaks, again, just kind of feathering that product right over the nail is going to give you that really good full coverage, okay? Sometimes you have to do that, certain colors, maybe with the different color pigments, but a lot of times you'll be okay with that, just those 2 coats. But just know you can touch up with that 3rd coat just in those certain little spots, okay? Fully cure that all the way through, and then you can go ahead and top coat. One of the other questions that we get is, can I use the cream clays for art? And the absolute answer is yes. Okay, these work really good for art because of their consistency, even with a small liner brush. And you can even get those really fine lines. You can do your design work. You can paint different designs with the cream clays. Absolutely, they work really well for it. Now, a lot of times people ask, well, why would I use the cream clays versus the mission controls? And a lot of it is really just personal preference. Which consistency do you like to work with? So the cream clays, obviously you notice that they are a thicker consistency, whereas the mission control is a little bit thinner consistency. So again, you can see cream clays, they're not moving. You can tip them on the side, you can hold them upside down. They're not moving, they're not running. They're a lot thicker. Now the mission controls, you can see the consistency of these. These are a lot thinner, okay? So these, again, depends on how you want to work. Do you want to work with a product that's a little bit thicker? Do you want to work with something that's a little thinner? Cream clays are a soft gel. So if you want to work with a soft gel, you can work with the cream clays. If you're looking for a hard gel, you can work with the mission control. So it really just depends on what you like to work with. But again, mission control, same kind of thing. You can still get those really fine lines. It just depends on what you like to work with, okay? So yes, you can definitely use the cream clays for your art and your designs. You can use the mission control, personal preference. Okay, so what do we do once we're done applying our product? How do we clean our brush out? Okay, so let's go through. All I'm gonna do to start is I'm just gonna use my little tile here, and I'm gonna just kind of keep wiping that brush until it pulls out as much of that cream clay as possible. Then I'm going to use a clear gel. Now at this point, whatever clear gel you have handy, I'm just going to grab my Manicure base. But if you have a top coat, if you have any of the Synergy gels, those work fine too. Just grab a clear gel. And all you're going to do is just kind of like we did when we were prepping the brush, you're going to just kind of run that gel through the brush, and you'll start to see a little bit of that color come out. And again, because we kind of primed that brush with the clear gel at the start, it's now going to be able to pull out that extra color as we work here. Okay, so just kind of keep working that clear into the brush, and again, you'll start to see that color is going to come out. And I kind of flip my brush back and forth from one side to the other just to really get that clear kind of saturated in there. I'm going to wipe out that excess, and again, I'm going to go through and try that again just to make sure that I get all of the color out. So I'll go through one more time. If you had a lot of extra paint in there, or you maybe didn't prep it with a little bit of the clear first, you're gonna maybe have to go through this a couple of different times just to really pull all of that color out. But it should start to come out fairly easy. So I think at this point, I've got just a tiny little bit left in there. Again, pull out the rest of that extra. All right, let's do one more just to make sure. Now again, you guys, if you go through and it comes out nice and clean, you don't have to repeat the process. It's good to go. And I think that's about where we're at here, because it doesn't look like much more color is coming out. Maybe just a tiny little bit. But after that, again, just wipe out that extra. And then a lot of times what I like to do is just take a dry wipe. I'll just fold that over my brush. I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on, but just enough to just kind of pull just a little bit of that extra gel out of the brush. Leave it that little bit in there so it's nice and conditioned. It's not going to get dried out. You don't use any solvents that are going to dry that out, but just keep that nice and clean. And then if you're using the dual-ended brush, make sure you put your cap back on carefully, and you can keep that brush nice and clean. All right, so hopefully some of these do's and don'ts, tips and tricks have helped you guys with some of the things that are gonna work with your cream clays, some that aren't. So hopefully that's gonna help you in the long run. Enjoy your cream clays.
Subscribe channel now. Subscribe channel now. Subscribe channel.